السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
ازيك يا باشمهندس هدار؟ ازيك حضرتك؟
أهلا بيكم جميعا. Thank you for the invitation. Can you hear me well and see me? تمام، الصوت مسموع والصورة واضحة.
هاي نزار، يا سامعينك وشايفينك.
اوكي تمام.
So I think we can start. We're good to go. So welcome to our speakers. So today we have a very interesting topic because we are developing by learning every day. We are so happy to have you with us today as guest speakers because it's always so special for us that we meet every Saturday. We get new speakers.
Okay, thank you very much for giving us the chance to introduce this subject. And can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it now. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so to give a brief about this topic today, it's about how to automate the sustainable procurement. We will speak
Could
about
you just
sustainable.
Give us a quick intro about yourself and Abid, please, in the beginning, just so people get to know you.
Yes, I'm just giving the title and about myself. My name is Nizar Mahmoud. I have over 20 years of experience in the supply chain with multinational companies. I also have a background with IT and network. I graduated from Faculty of Engineering in Cairo University. And I have also a passion for automation, digitalization, data analytics. My experience also included setting and developing procurement policies and procedures, as well as sustainable procurement in the last 5 years. Would you like to introduce Abid as well now before we start?
Yeah, thanks, Nizar. So I'll just quickly introduce myself as well. My name is Abid Shawar. I'm the founder and CEO of Oscar. Oscar stands for Operational Supply Chain Assessment and Reporting, and we are the only MENA-focused automated sustainable procurement platform. We help companies assess their suppliers for different sustainability-related risks, and my background really is as a sustainability, climate change, circular economy, environment, and waste specialist. So I've been working in the field for over a decade now in the Middle East, and really trying to apply those lessons across the supply chain where companies have most of their impact. So yeah, excited for today's session.
Okay, back to our presentation. Our topics today, we will start with a quick brief about the importance and benefits of sustainable procurement. Then we will go to explain the role of automation and sustainability. And we will see later how it's important to have multi-tier supply chain visibility or supplier information. And just to know, I mean, we have a question like for everyone to ask themselves, how well do we know our suppliers? This is an important things to have. And then Abid will take over to give some best practice examples for sustainable procurement, and will introduce Oscar Automated Sustainable Procurement Platform. Just a brief about the sustainable procurement. For the people who don't know what is sustainable procurement, it means how to integrate sustainability and the environmental, social, and governance aspect into the procurement process and the decision making. And the reason for that is to ensure the compliance and commitment towards human rights, fair practices, ethical conduct, to prevent corruption and endorse sustainability. So it's not only environment, it's also about human rights, about governance, ethical conduct. So it's not just something fancy about the environment, because this is a common misconception about the subject. Okay, why we do this is to lead for creating value for all stakeholders, that is suppliers, customers, employees of the company, and all the community. And also a big important point is generating economic and environment value and mitigating the risk for the company. So the benefits, as we discussed, I mean, We know that the supply chain is the biggest impact in most of the companies, like maybe 70% of the impact of the for the environment, the CO2 emission. And of course, it's a big concern about in the world now about they have most of the countries have vision for 2030, and the environment is becoming very critical subject. So that's why the supply chain is very important, that we monitor the supply chain to reduce this negative impact on the environment and on the planet. So the procurement activities have to be very carefully selected, and the suppliers have to be carefully selected also to understand what they do, because most of the companies, they outsource. But outsourcing, it takes the headache out of the employees of the company. But on the other hand, it's a risk that we don't know what suppliers are doing. So it's very important to know also how committed the suppliers to the environment and to the sustainability. So as we can see, this also not only support the social responsibilities, but also mitigate the risk related to supply chain disruption and reputational damage. So it's avoid any damage to the company reputation and loss of economic opportunities.
Screen is not changing, Nizar. Screen is fixed.
What slide are you seeing? Sorry, I will share again.
Now it's moving. Now it's moving.
So now you can see the slide of benefits of sustainable procurement, right?
Yes, it's moving now. Perfect. Go on.
Okay. Now we will speak about the role of automation and sustainability. So why is it important to automate the sustainability? It's of course automation itself. It's not relying on human errors, or I mean human capabilities. So it's improving the efficiency, minimizing the human error, and reducing the labor cost, and improving the safety. This is automation in general. And it also guarantees streamlined process, faster production, consistent quality, and waste reduction. By using an advanced and data analytics and AI-enabled or advanced tools, it will help incorporate the proactive approach that collects and analyzes real-time data. I mean, this not only rely on the human activity. And data analytics also give you a clear insight for the supplier data, for the CO2 emission, and so on. This not only applies to the company itself, not the company activities, but also the suppliers' activities, the tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers as well. And next slide, as for the people just to understand what is tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, the company not only dealing with the direct suppliers, but the suppliers of the suppliers, going down to the source of the raw material. So how we can do this? The company is responsible also for, will be also accountable for any supplier error or supplier misconduct. So that's why we have to get a supplier due diligence questionnaire and collecting evidence of the supplier's approach towards sustainability. We can also conduct associated compliance program between the company and the suppliers and perform regular checks on the supplier's commitment. So now the important question, how well do we know our suppliers? As we discussed earlier, that outsourcing can reduce the headache on the company staff, but it also can create some critical issues for the company and increase the complexity of the supply chain risk. So having visibility is very important for multi-tier suppliers, as I mentioned. Because, for example, if we select the wrong supplier, the supplier committed something not only for, I'm talking about not only environment, but let's say corruption or misconduct of any behavior, the company will be accountable for this as well. So using not just by manual work, I mean automating and having advanced solutions can help this to improve this supply chain visibility. For example, it can provide high quality supplier data collection, identify the areas of concern and mitigate the risks, ensure trustworthy supplier collaboration, enhance decision making, increase revenues and brand value for the company, and decrease supply chain cost. My part is now finished, so Abid will take over to explain some best practice in sustainable procurement and will introduce the Oscar Sustainable. So Abid, please, you can take over the control.
Perfect. Please just let me know when my screen is showing.
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Okay, so today I'm going to be taking you through first an introduction of what Oscar is. Next, some of the best practices that at least we like to follow, and we definitely recommend that others follow as well. And then we'll go through maybe a bit more on what the platform looks like and how it could potentially help you. Just for reference, and I know that the chat is being quite active, and it's good to see some familiar names as well on the chat. If you do have a question, please stick it in the chat or ask it in the Q&A. I will be able to see it on my screen. So if there is anything from your side, please don't hesitate to ask. So just as a quick introduction to what the Oscar platform is, once again, Oscar stands for Operational Supply Chain Assessment and Reporting, and we provide sustainable procurement due diligence for clients in construction, real estate development, industrial manufacturing, really the more heavy industries, but we can tailor the platform to really any type of client. If you are conducting procurement and your activity aligns up with the International Standard Classification for Industries, or ISIC, we can support you and your suppliers with no issue. And the way that we work is that we embed directly into your existing procurement process to really minimize that disruption and support your decision making. We are the only platform that really is tailored to the MENA region. So we know how to capture data from local suppliers, and we're able to synthesize it as well in a way that makes sense for local companies. Some of the international standards that we align with, and really these are the ones that we definitely recommend for different companies. First of all, the UN Sustainable Development Goals are really the basis for all of these different standards and for all of this action. Between the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which, as you know, are 17 goals covering a range of topics, really looking at minimizing our impact going into 2030 and beyond, and then also limiting the amount of temperature rise by 1.5 degrees C by 2100 or 2100. In support of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, you have something like the Global Compact. This is another UN initiative, but this is actually targeting individual businesses. So you can quickly sign up to the UN Global Compact. All you really need to do is write a letter that says that we support the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And really, it'll give you the ability to kind of look at what others are doing. It'll give you the ability as well to see how you could potentially implement some best practices across your own actions and across your own processes. But it's not something that you that really will be, I suppose, it's not going to force you into anything. It's not legally binding. It's just companies really helping other companies. You also have the IFC. They have their ESG disclosure guidelines. I'm based in Dubai, so we're also subject to the GCC disclosure guidelines, which actually closely mirror the IFC, where you have several key data points that you should be reporting for different businesses, and it also gives you a rubric to kind of see what is more relevant for your business and what isn't. You also have different international standards that are not required, but are best practices. So you have GRI and SASB, which are actually currently merging to form a new ratings board or a standards board. And then you have something like the science-based targets, which really in our experience are the most comprehensive. So if you're a business following science-based targets, we believe that you're really doing as much as really is possible for yourself, because it's really the one that takes the most time in terms of generating their standards. It takes the most time in terms of thinking what the sensitive receptors could be. And it takes the most time in terms of ensuring that its processes are tailored to the individual business or industry that they're targeting. Some of the ways that you can actually implement these different processes and best practices is to look at things like the ISO 20400, the Sustainable Procurement Guidance. It'll actually give you a full understanding of how to build your sustainable procurement policy and your sustainable procurement strategy within your company. Going back to the Science-Based Targets Initiative as well, they do have a lot of literature in terms of engaging supply chains, engaging your suppliers, taking them with you on your decarbonization journey. And then also you have something like GRI 204 for procurement practices, and really how to engage your suppliers again in order to make sure that they're matching up with your internal sustainability targets. And really, that's what sustainable procurement is. It's putting a layer of sustainability due diligence on top of your existing procurement process. And the reason why you do that is because you have sustainability targets, but most of your impact is across your supply chain. So making sure that you're getting your suppliers involved, getting them to be part of the team is really the best way and only way to reduce your emissions, to reduce your negative impacts, and really to start mitigating some of those issues as well. Now, in terms of the value add for sustainable procurement, I'll speak mainly to general value add, but I'll also maybe touch on some of the things that automation can do with someone like Oscar, for example. So the main thing for sustainable procurement is that it allows you to mitigate risk across your supply chain. Increasing that visibility across your supply chain allows you to enable better supplier performance, but it also allows you to see problem suppliers or to see potential issues before they really become too much of a problem. So it'll allow you to avoid that disruption. The other thing is business longevity. Ultimately, when you take your suppliers on this journey, you're building each other up and you're helping them also adapt to these incoming regulations. So you have these longer relationships, and you're also able to support each other's business longevity because you're preparing yourselves really for as these regulations come into action. Next is on the ESG performance. So it helps you very much enhance your ESG performance. A lot of companies now, especially the ones that I'm speaking with, are struggling to get investment, are struggling to get funding. And the issue really is that they're unable to provide a full understanding of their ESG performance, and they're unable to kind of provide them with that reporting across the supply chain, which is really, again, where most of your impact is. Doing sustainable procurement allows you to start collecting that data, allows you to start enhancing your ESG performance. And a lot of times, from my previous experience as well, a lot of your suppliers are already doing quite a lot, right? So it'll allow you to really start highlighting those victories, highlighting that performance, and then really putting yourself in a much stronger position. In terms of cost reduction, from the case studies that are out there, sustainable procurement can actually help you reduce your costs anywhere between 9 and 16% just after the first year of implementation, just because it's an additional layer of due diligence. When you automate it using something like Oscar, you can reduce your cost of sustainable procurement. Instead of hiring additional resources, you can reduce that cost by around 80% as well. So you're reducing cost on the materials, on the services that you're procuring, but you're also reducing cost on the process itself. Next is that increased speed and agility. Again, when it comes to automation, the idea is to make things simple. The idea is to make it very clear for your different suppliers. So reducing time by fitting into your existing process is absolutely critical, and it's something that you can do with automation. And it really helps increase that speed of getting those responses, that sustainability due diligence in time for all your other technical and commercial reviews as well. And then the main thing as well is that sustainable procurement has to be something that is done locally. It has to be something that fits in with local culture. We work with a lot of international companies, and they struggle to bring their automated platforms from other regions. So we work with a lot of people that have, for example, sustainable procurement platforms in Europe, but they don't work here because they're asking questions that suppliers here don't understand. So you need to look at something that fits in with local culture. Now, typically for sustainable procurement, you need to have the due diligence protocols themselves. So we have questionnaires that cover a minimum of 8 topics. We can add, we can subtract, but you do need protocols that are tailored to what your supplier is and what your supplier will be doing for you. The other thing is to make sure that supplier management is not really is a big piece of this, and making sure that you can onboard them, remove them, make sure that you can track them as well across their sustainability journey. You need to also constantly be reviewing reports and recommendations, and that should be very quick to generate with automated solutions. And then obviously you need to be able to track progress. So you know which supplier did what at what date and how they're improving or how they're getting worse. Now, how it works typically, and this is the flow that we also use at Oscar, is that once suppliers are notified of an invitation to bid, so at that initial stage where you've done the shortlisting, you know which suppliers you want to go to get a quote, at that point, they should be assessed, where you're able to collect that information from them, validate the information using your automated solution, and then those results and certificates are then provided to you so that you can make your review quickly. Now, I'll just quickly touch on how we assess suppliers, and this is something that I definitely recommend. In terms of how we assess suppliers, we try and keep it simple. We look at 4 key dimensions. They are environment, social, governance, and innovation. So already very similar to ESG benchmarking as well. But we do look at the innovation part, because the innovation part here is looking at higher efficiency. So you're using less materials, or you're using less energy. So you're, by definition, also reducing your carbon emissions. The other aspect of it is also innovation in terms of human resourcing and making sure that you're keeping people happy and making sure as well that you're treating them as they need to be treated. So just to quickly highlight on this, with regards to environment, this is looking at how their environmental conservation or climate change approaches are. And to get a better understanding, you should be assessing suppliers in terms of, are they tracking their waste generation? Are they tracking their energy and water usage? Are they tracking GHG emissions? You need to get an understanding of where your suppliers are, at least from the environment perspective. And again, this item is something that really matters more for heavier industries, but it should matter really across the board. And it should be something that you should be looking at, especially with your tier 1s, but definitely if you can invest a bit more and look at it across your supply chain, it'll provide you with a wealth of information as well. In terms of social assesses how the impact your supplier may have on society, including employees, then also the approach to worker welfare, equality and non-discrimination, health and safety, local sourcing, supplier management. All of these are topics that companies touch on here and there, but in a targeted way, and then in a way where you're also you can take this up to your ESG reporting. I think it's absolutely critical, especially for sustainable procurement, and especially as different regulations come online. Again, heavier industries, suppliers with more stakeholders, or suppliers with more employees will be ones that you'll want to do this with more. But again, this is something that it pays to invest across the board. Governance is a universal concern, and it refers to the systems and mechanisms, policies that your supplier has in place to manage their own internal activities. You need to be looking at internal process governance, but you also need to make sure that your supplier has in place methods to ensure their own business continuity. So if there is an issue, that you're not left holding the bag, basically, that your supplier has the ability to make sure that they're able to complete contracts, or they're able to provide you with what you need to finish the work. And this is a universal concern, but again, applies maybe a bit more to bigger suppliers, but something you should definitely be looking at. Innovation looks at how suppliers are employing ways to continuously improve their processes and operations. Are they looking at investing into innovative solutions? Are they looking at more efficient equipment? Are they looking at their own long-term growth? Again, another universal concern, but maybe something that's more tailored to manufacturing than anything else. But again, people should be thinking about this across the board. So how we build our protocols, we have a few different standard topics, but we try and align as much as possible with the international requirements, but we can also tailor to client requirements. So if you have your own sustainability policy or your own sustainability, sustainable procurement program, we can definitely integrate those topics into our standard questionnaires, or we can also create bespoke questionnaires as required. The main thing that you need to do as well is you need to make what data you want to collect from the suppliers very easy to understand. What we do in Oscar, for example, is we have binary questions most of the time. We ask them, do you meet this requirement? We explain the requirement to the extent possible to make it very clear, guys, this is what we're asking for. If they say yes, then typically we'll request more information, request evidence, and then they can move on. If they say no, there's no need to invest more time really to gather that information because they don't meet that requirement. So we can move on. In terms of reporting and the assessment results themselves, so as a minimum, what we should be looking for is having some sort of certificate that at least lets you know that this supplier has been assessed within the last 12 months, or at least the last 3 to 12 months. And that certificate will allow you also to, moving forward, if you want to work with that supplier, if that certificate is still valid, you don't need to go back and reassess them, right? So it allows you to then to put resources on other suppliers that haven't been assessed. But this is absolutely, I think, the absolute minimum. Going a bit beyond that, you should be looking at platforms, at least something like Oscar. What we do is we'll generate reports for the client themselves where we compare suppliers like for like. You can see exactly what points they missed. You can see exactly what are areas of concern. And then you can also check our dashboard to kind of see where different suppliers and supplier categories are having issues. Past that, and I think this is something that actually Oscar is very unique in, we also generate reports for the suppliers. And I think this is definitely a best practice that should be kind of taken up by all the different automated solutions out there. But when you work with a supplier, the goal is not to, oh, they scored poorly, let's remove them from the supplier list. It should be, they scored poorly, let me give them all the tools that they need to kind of improve their performance. And that's exactly what we do. We provide them with all the information of like, this is where you scored well, this is where you didn't score well, these are some actions you can take, here are some documents you can reference, just so that we're not leaving any suppliers behind. You're able then to take them on this sustainability journey, and you can, again, foster those long-term relationships. Now, maybe just some case studies in terms of providing that localized solution and how you can work with suppliers. So we worked with, here, 2 case studies, one with a construction company. So they had a global competitor that had been engaged for 18 months. They weren't able to collect any data from any single supplier. We were on the job for just over a month, and we were able to onboard 75% of the suppliers and assess 50% of them, right? It's the approach is more important than the data that you collect, right? Making sure that you're able to collect it directly from the suppliers and giving them those requests or those requirements in a way that they understand. I think that's absolutely important. So the Oscar approach works better really for suppliers here in the region. The other item is that this client was a real estate developer, right? And they actually had a sustainable procurement program, which was quite unique here in the region. But their issues that they were doing it manually, which is really the first stop that people will do. That let's, if we're going to do it, let's try it out manually at least. But the thing is that when you're collecting so much data from so many different suppliers, it very much becomes a painful process. When they brought us on, we were able to achieve a 100% response rate and complete the assessments within 1 day, when it normally took them actually weeks. So the idea here is that automating the process allows you to get those verified responses very quickly. Now, just to quickly show you as well, maybe some of the scores and how they've improved by just asking these questions in a way that makes sense. You have, we did scoring in the first round on average. If we look at the environment dimension, just as an example, in the first round, suppliers scored on average 36%. But because we gave them that reporting, because we were able to explain what we were doing, because we were able to engage with them, in the second round, those same suppliers, the average jumped up to 42%. And the way this happens is that basically, as you engage with them more, as you explain the process more, suppliers become more mature, they get an understanding of what you're looking for, and their performance increases. So that's it from my side. I'm just going to quickly check if there's any questions, but if anyone wants to ask me a question directly, please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen that has all of my contact details, and you'll be able to reach me directly. I see a question from Muhammad Omar on the sustainable procurement with respect to SDGs. The key thing with sustainable procurement is that ultimately the UN Sustainable Development Goals have given everyone like a bedrock upon which to build sustainability strategies. You have a lot of different topics between health and well-being, food security, transportation, renewable energy, and you really need to look at the UN Sustainable Development Goals and see which ones are more appropriate for your business. So some businesses, for example, manufacturing, you're going to look at responsible production and consumption, which is SDG 12, and that'll be really your Bible when compared to SDG 7, which is on renewable energy. It could be both, it could be one, it could be 7, right? But it really depends on what's more relevant for you as a business. And then once you have an understanding of what makes you sustainable as a business, you can then cascade that down to your suppliers and ask them those questions in terms of what's required. Next question was from Abdul Halim. Who audits the suppliers who answer yes during the survey? So the system does an initial audit where no one is allowed to answer yes without providing reputable evidence. If that evidence is reviewed by the system and then found to be fraudulent or incorrect, it's automatically rejected. If it's found to be correct, then the system will approve it. We also do have a team of, at least for Oscar, we do have a team that manually reviews different submissions to make sure as well that these aren't fraudulent items. But the system is automated with a manual component that kind of helps make sure that these items are correct. How are you going to deal with the sub-suppliers? I suppose it becomes difficult when you deal with sub-suppliers, because if we're working with yourselves, our scope is limited to your suppliers. What we can do then is maybe engage with your suppliers so that we can then expand our scope. And really, that's actually our aim as Oscar. We want to provide the suppliers with all of that value, because ultimately we want to show them that actually if you implement this on your side, your suppliers will also be better off, because we'll be engaging with them in the same way we're engaging with you. And maybe just to I suppose put a point on this, a lot of the suppliers that we've already assessed actually use our assessment as a sustainability checklist for them. So our assessment is built on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It turns often on the goals and the topics that are relevant for those companies. So what they get at the end of it is basically a checklist of, okay, this is relevant for me. Maybe I need to develop in these areas so that for my next client, I can actually demonstrate to them that, okay, I actually already meet all of these things because I've been assessed, and that improves their value in front of the client as well. Abdul Halim with a follow-up, does any case necessitate supplier premises external audit? So there are cases where that's necessitated. It's not something that Oscar provides personally, but we are partnered with a consultancy that can provide those on-site audits. And really the issue there becomes that if we see a recurring non-compliance, that's when we kind of flag it to our consultant partner saying that, okay, maybe you should engage with the client and maybe we should have these on-site audits as well. Because in general, on-site audits are definitely very important, especially on the social aspect when you have things like health and safety and worker welfare. And those items definitely need to be addressed with an on-site audit, but it's not something that we provide as Oscar because ultimately we're the platform provider. But we do have partners that can support clients with that as well. We have another question from Clyde in terms of methods that are being used to measure sustainable practices. So the thing is that a lot of what we do with, first of all, building the questionnaires, building the protocols that we have, is we map what's relevant for different industries, and we look at what are the best ways really to measure that impact. And a lot of our questionnaires and our protocols are tailored to make sure that we're extracting the exact information. So it really depends on the question itself, and it really depends on the item that we're asking for. there's different methods being used. The ones that we tend to rely on a lot are the ones from this, the Science-Based Targets Initiative, but there are a lot of different methods that are very useful, actually. Okay. Most sub-suppliers have no idea the sustainable supply chain standards, and we oblige them. They will stop business because of the big, huge gap between the reality. No, that's the thing. Ultimately, suppliers working with their suppliers, it's difficult because you, as the main client, can give them requirements or at least assess their supplier selection and their supplier code of conduct and all of these different items. And if you find that it's something that you can't agree with, ultimately it is a red flag, and it's something that we can capture using Oscar. But you can't really force them to make sure that their sub-suppliers are adhering to these things. It's something that they need to do themselves, and that's the idea, right? Like there has to be a limit in terms of the overall boundary for an activity like this. But again, the idea is that we show them the value for your suppliers, and then they can cascade that down to their suppliers. And again, a lot of the suppliers that we've spoken to will be like, oh, we actually have this issue with our supplier. We're actually going to use this to speak to them about it. So it's something that we've seen in action being cascaded down, and this is happening here in the region. This is not happening in Europe or the US. This is happening here in Dubai and Saudi, right? So there is, like, I'm not going to guarantee that we'll be able to cover all sub-suppliers, but when we speak to the suppliers themselves, a lot of them do react with, okay, we didn't understand that this was something wrong. We will take this first internally, and then we'll see how we can apply it to our suppliers. But absolutely, it is a big issue that the boundaries basically stop before the sub-supplier. But it's something that hopefully we can work with suppliers to engage with them more and really get this sorted. Perfect. I suppose if
I think you have covered a lot. I think you have covered a lot, Abid, honestly. You have done a very comprehensive feedback and very mature. So I think so people are giving you thumb up. Many people are giving you thumb up. Okay. So that's so cool. Okay.
No, great. Thank you, Shireen, for the opportunity, and thank you everyone for being so engaged. This is a topic very close to my heart as well.
Yeah, and as we are partners for Association of Supply Chain Management, ASCM, I would like to that we can collaborate in another session. You and Fernanda, she talks about sustainability, and we have standards for sustainability from Association of Supply Chain Management. So we always believe in ecosystem collaboration. So I think this should be our next time after Ramadan, inshallah. We try to do something in April or May. Okay. So this is our appreciation certificate to you, Abid, and to you, Nizar. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your contribution to our community. It's always very important for us to learn from people like you and people who are experts in the field. I would like to thank everyone. أنا بشكر كل واحد معانا النهارده في الويبينار اللي يعني بيحب ان هو يبقى معانا ويتعلم ويحط وقت من وقته الشخصي انه يتعلم. ف thank you all. We have already achieved big number of webinars. It has been done since COVID, and it proves sustainability is very important. يعني sustainability, contributing to the community, ان احنا كلنا نتعلم من بعض، دي حاجة مهمة. وبنشكركم انكم معانا، وبنشكرك بالتحديد يا نزار، اعتقد دي ثالث او رابع مره تشارك معانا. ف thank you
thanks to you also for the opportunity, and thanks to everybody attending this webinar and the valuable questions. I really appreciate this interaction with the people.
Okay, thank you everyone. وشكرا thank you everyone who joined us today. Okay,
thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, we only have a few ones before Ramadan, so please remember everyone stick to the timing, because this is the best timing for prayer and handling everything. Okay, thank you and see you next Saturday inshallah. نتقابلكم على خير السبت القادم. شكرا.
شكرا. باي باي.
شكرا. وهنحط ايمان اعتقد حطيت لكم اللينك بتاع joining our واتساب جروب.
Yes,
في احنا عندنا واتساب جروب. اوكي.
تمام. I saw it.
So if you يعني yes share يعني this with us وjoin us يعني الواتساب تبقوا دايما الناس عندها المواعيد. اوكي. Thank you. شكرا. السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام.
شكرا. Thank you.
Bye.